Hey everybody. I wanted to talk a little bit about my new record and talk about this amazing outfit. It's funny because this is the clothing that I'm not gonna wear when I'm gonna wash. These were like my last resources, and it's interesting because this one, I remember I bought it 2019 and I loved it. It was like the T-shirt that I use for formal occasions, but with time, it's got something that it opens the bottom on the top and it feels kind of weird. But I feel like I could be like in a steakhouse with this, right? And yes, I wanted to talk a little bit about my new music, my new record. Right now, we're gonna release the fourth song. It's with a really good friend of mine, Simone Pace, and it's a song about vampires. I think it's interesting, and I was thinking about the whole process of doing this record. At the beginning, I released Laberinto, which did really well, and it's got a lot of Argentinian influence of what I think it's Argentinian. And I listened to it with an Argentinian the other day, and he was like, "Yeah, I can sense some Argentinian," which I thought it was really good because they're very jealous of their culture. And I had some other experiences like never in your mind said that sounds Argentinian, but this time it was like, yeah, I can hear the Argentinian. And then the second one was very Mexican. The third one was like Afro Spanish. Lately I've been like understanding more about the Spanish crown, and there's so many interesting facts about them. Like they were anti-slavery and very good to the Indians. Totally different to what we were taught on school. And yes, and the new one, it's I think it's like the darkest one from the song from the record. And yes, I started writing this record. It was 2019, and I moved to Canada. I rented like an Airbnb, and I was like staying there. And then I was there for a while, but I don't like the summer, and I don't like Canadian summer either. It was like super humid, although Montreal is very nice. But I also didn't feel like I did like a very good click with the people around me. It was just like weird. So I just moved to Patagonia. And Patagonia has something very pretty because you have a lot of time with nature. And I started writing on this new record. And a lot of the things that you're going to hear in this record are part of kind of these characters that I found during my trips. For example, the record starts, it's got like these like kind of Portuguese, Spanish, like Afro-Caribbean, but then it starts going more into the European side. And in my mind, I used to like live in a tent in an abandoned bus, and I could see all of the mountains, and it was like super pretty. But I always wondered like what's in those mountains, because I sometimes went up, but they're like really big. And they're so big that when you cross them, they're part of another country. And it was beautiful, but also very mysterious. So some of these songs that you're gonna hear, they represent like the people of my imagination from those mountains. So there's some of these songs that have like a lot of like gnomes in them. Like yeah, like from Snow White, the gnomes, the dwarves. There's a lot of that, and there's also a lot of like monk inspiration, because when you live alone in nature and you have no electricity, you understand the monk life. And I think the monk life, it's very supernatural, right? It's like the most supernatural. Kind of weird because the other day I was talking with a friend and we were talking about 5G. In New York, I just like, whenever I mention 5G, it's like, you're fucking dumb if you think it's bad for you. But the other day a friend was asking me like, do you sense 5G? And to be quite honest, I can't. Not that I am aware of, but when I was living in nature, I could feel a peace that there was not so many pollution, invisible pollution. So I hope that explains something, but it was just like this peace that you didn't feel like this overwhelming thing. And we're electricity. That's not like esoteric point of view, like the brain works with electricity. So I think these electromagnetic waves, they could have an impact. I'm not sure what they could be. But yeah, there was like a huge piece. I was reading the other day that a miner from Canada that moved to Patagonia, he said that on a lagoon where I was close to, he said like there's a dragon there. Yeah, we just saw it, and super big. The head is super big, and there's many legends of people that there's dragons there, including some letters from some Austrian monks, and they say beware of cold lagoons because dragons love to lay their eggs there. So I don't know. This it's very fantasy. The whole record's called Fables of the New World, so it's got a lot of that. And yes, I thought it was just like super interesting. And it's also when you meet different people in life, I think as a poet you absorb it and then you digest it and you turn it into poetry. So I met a lot of people that they were like that to me. They were like either vampires or gnomes or this whole different groups. And yesterday I was walking in New York and I saw a group of men and they really looked like dwarves or gnomes. And I was like, yeah, gnomes are inspired on these people because they had like big beards. And I was also understanding like, who am I? How can I be genuine in this super changing world? And I think we live in a very good time because although there's a lot of censorship and there's a lot of just pushing certain artists, I think that's all crumbling down. And we can see it with a lot of news of how these clubs are crumbling down. So I think there's a very good opportunity. And I think if you're genuine, you have a bigger chance to connect with people. Because if you don't, they'll find you dishonest. And I really don't want to be found as dishonest. So I was understanding like, who am I? This record started on 9/20/19. And I've also been noticing how my voice is shifting because I made like almost all of the records very kind of like feminine intonation. I used to be very high pitch, but little by little on the record it starts becoming more masculine. And I thought that was very interesting, like kind of like a Disney prince, how they sing like, "Mwah." And I thought that was super interesting. And yes, what else? Genuity. I made some notes. Let me go check them. I started writing this record with the song Laberinto, which is like the first one, and that one's inspired of kind of Argentina. And there's also like a very like the first part of the record it's in Spanish, but then it starts going into English. And I was also thinking because I mainly see the continent as English and Spanish. There's some Portuguese and French. And I called a friend that he speaks French, but French are unbearable. When you try to speak French, they're like, nah, and they just like lower your self-esteem. So I just didn't do it. It was just like English, but there's also like an Irish side and a English side and a Germanic side, which are the gnomes, the dwarves. And I was, kind of understanding like, who's this culture of the gnomes, and I thought it was very interesting. So I just wanted to explain a little bit more about the whole how the record's going. Right now we're gonna release the fourth. And yes, I just wanted to make a video about that. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.